Yes, okay. Hello everyone and welcome to my reaction to Revolution of the Daleks. My very dishevelled, all over the place reaction to the Revolution of the Daleks, but a reaction nonetheless. And my reaction to the episode was kind of all over the place, kind of a bit like the episode itself. It had some really good moments. Visually, it looked fantastic. I thought the send-off for Ryan and Graham was suitable. I honestly thought that one of them was going to get killed off in a similar fashion to how, well, I sort of predicted it and maybe past companions, but they survived, and I assume that they might come back as maybe a guest in a later episode. I did like the reference to the "you're doing it" meme at the end, but the rest of the episode, it felt quite low-key, especially for a Dalek invasion episode. I guess that's fitting for the sort of tone and vibe of this era in particular, because obviously this was bigged up as a big Dalek invasion story, the sequel to Resolution, and the way they tie it into Resolution is very, very much direct, and they do it in such a way that is very much, they literally have a little clip of Resolution at the beginning to tie it into this story. Obviously, Jack Robertson, the new Daleks, the old Daleks, John Barrowman, and I think, if anything, it was probably trying to balance just a little bit too much. I feel as though John Barrowman, while he was great, and he always is in Doctor Who, I felt as though he could have been anybody and it wouldn't have changed the narrative that much. I felt as though for the reunion of those two characters, it could have used more focus. And I do get what the news articles were saying when they said that the Daleks weren't really the focus, because the focus was on the companions and how their opinion of the Doctor has changed due to them being away from her for so long. I do reckon that it could have benefited the companions and the story as a whole if the Doctor was absent for a little bit longer, because I felt as though there was a lot of potential in having her in prison and having the companions try and do it by herself. So when she just shows up at about the 15 or 20 minute mark back to normal, I was like, oh, I kind of wanted a bit more from that storyline. I felt like it could have benefited from some more time exploring her time in prison. There was some good visual nods, though. Obviously, there was a weeping angel in the prison. There was also a silence in there as well, which was very cool. Yeah, I'm just a bit all over the place with it. Like, there's bits I really love. Like, I like, obviously, as I said, John Barrowman was great. I think visually it looked really good. Like, obviously, this is just a massive spoiler reaction, by the way, but obviously, at the end, when the Daleks are in the dummy TARDIS and they get, like, crumpled away, I thought that effect was really, really good. I thought the effects in general were just, they were, I think, really, really solid. The CGI blended with the practical effects really well. But yeah, I can't help but feel as though it was a bit low stakes for a Dalek story. That was the main thing I sort of came out with it with, was like, oh, okay, fair enough, you got rid of the Daleks. I did like that there was a bit of a nod to the Civil War idea and how the two factions of Daleks both fought each other. I also thought as though the Resolution Dalek deserved a bit more of a send-off, because at the end he says, yeah, I'm pure, I was the one who was last here, I was the last of the reconnaissance group. And I felt as though he felt a bit like a Shad in The Timeless Children, where he just sort of got zapped out, despite having been built up a lot more previously. Yeah, it was a weird one, and I haven't quite, obviously as you can probably tell by my dishevelled and frantic tone of voice, haven't really figured out what I thought about it yet. Like, I wouldn't say it's, like, I wouldn't say it's bad, but I hesitate to say it's great either. It's kind of in that weird middle zone that I haven't quite figured out yet. I definitely think it had more of a Doctor Who feel to me than some of the previous episodes have. Certainly, it felt more like Doctor Who than Series 11 in particular to me, which was a good thing. I liked how the scientist guy got taken over by the Dalek in a similar fashion to how the woman did in Resolution. I thought that was a nice parallel. Yeah, like, nothing. Yeah, it's a really strange one. I thought the companion departure was, again, suitably downplayed. They just wanted to, spend their rest of the time on Earth, and that's fair enough. I think the nice little moment at the end was good with the Doctor and the companions. It didn't quite feel earned because it felt as though we didn't really know what their dynamic was. Similar to that scene with Ryan, where the Doctor and Ryan are talking, I felt as though that was kind of like, but you've not really spoken that much. Do you know each other that well? I wasn't entirely sure about that, but yeah, it was. Sorry if I'm a bit out of breath. I'm just all over the place. Yeah, seeing the Dalek ships, that was really cool. Seeing the new Dalek ships. Well, I say the new Dalek ships, the old Dalek ships, but obviously with a new sort of interior design, that was cool. When the guy said "Take me to your leader," I was almost convinced that Davros was going to show up, but he didn't. But the Civil War aspect did turn out to be somewhat true. I do kind of like that the Doctor did it on purpose as sort of a means to manipulate things into her favour. I thought that was a really clever element, kind of gave me Remembrance vibes. That's another thing as well, the reconnaissance drones, the limited amount of the voice of them we did hear, it felt eerily similar to like how the classic Daleks sound, whereas obviously the Russell T Davies ones sounded much more like the new series ones. Not sure whether that was a deliberate choice on the part of the production or Nick Briggs, but like, yeah, I definitely noticed a distinction in their voices, which I thought was interesting. I think it's quite weird because I felt as though the marketing did do it just a bit of a disservice because it was marketed as, oh, how do you defeat the Daleks without the Doctor? And as I said, the Doctor shows up relatively early on, so yeah, it's another example of weird Doctor Who marketing. Speaking of weird Doctor Who marketing, do you want to talk about that John Bishop reveal at the end? It was very, very just left field and random. He was just with his mate, and he said, "Oh, your lucky number's 13," and stuff like that. And then he just shows up, and that's the conclusion. I guess that was what the big cliffhanger ending was that was implied. I'm not sure what the additional scene was that was filmed. If I had to guess, it might well be the bike riding scene, because I remember it being said on, I believe, the Radio Times. There's going to be a fan-pleasing reference to online fans, and obviously had the "you're doing it, mate" line, which was very funny. I thought that was quite well implemented. Yeah, overall, it's a struggle to try and figure out. There's some moments I loved. There's some moments I was like, okay, weird. I think Jack Robertson, he worked much better in this story than he did in Arachnids. I definitely think his sort of cartoonish villain sort of stuff works a lot better for this. But the main thing I will say as well is that this episode feels really weirdly paced, because you have, at the beginning, you have lots of slow moments where characters are just talking between each other, but at the same time you'll have scenes later on that are really fast and feel like they should have more time dedicated to them. Like the Daleks meeting each other, the reconnaissance Daleks and the current, or the RTD Daleks, meeting each other, that felt like it should be a much bigger scene. Jack Robertson's sort of betrayal thing, that was kind of just a thing that happens and then 5 minutes later it gets changed again. The prison, as I said, I'd like to have seen more of that. But I mean, yeah, it's a weird one. I enjoyed it. I will say that while it was on, I was like, oh, it is cool seeing the Daleks in force again. I thought the red lasers looked cool. And I thought the idea of them reverse engineering Dalek mutants out of the DNA of the reconnaissance one was cool. But yeah, it was a bit, yeah. I'm all over the place. I think overall, I think it's a solid episode for this era. I would put it above most of the series 11 and 12 flock for me. Currently, that could change over time. But I mean, we'll just have to wait and see on that. But yeah, overall, weirdly paced. Some things should have been given more time. And I felt that it was a bit too low stakes for what was bigged up to be the big Dalek invasion story of this sort of era. Whether we'll get another one later down the line that maybe explores some of the after effects of this, we'll have to wait and see on that. But if you did enjoy this very all over the place reaction, be sure to give it a like, comment down below your thoughts on Revolution of the Daleks in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you